The fastest way to stay broke on a good income is to keep buying things that make you look wealthy before they make you free. That is what wealthy people figured out years ago. It is not because they all drive old cars, wear plain clothes, or secretly hate nice things. Many of them love nice things. They just stopped buying one category first, things that make them feel rich while making their future poorer. That difference sounds small until you audit it. A household can earn 6 figures, have a luxury SUV in the driveway, 3 streaming services, a premium phone plan, and a beautiful kitchen renovation on financing, and still be one layoff away from panic. Another household can earn less, live quieter, and slowly buy back their time because they refuse to let their identity become a subscription. That is the real split. Not rich versus poor, not smart versus foolish. The split is between people who buy relief and people who buy capacity. By the end, you will have 10 purchases to audit. Not because every item is always bad. That is lazy advice. The question is sharper. Does this purchase make your life stronger after the dopamine wears off? And stay with me, because number 10 is the one that quietly decides whether a high income becomes wealth or just becomes a more expensive lifestyle. Chapter 1. Wealthy people stopped buying cars for applause. The car is the easiest place to confuse movement with progress. Meet Daniel. He is 38, works in medical sales in Dallas, and earns about $145,000 a year before taxes. On paper, Daniel is doing well. His LinkedIn looks polished. His friends think he has made it. Then he leases a luxury truck because, in his words, clients notice details. They probably do. But his checking account notices details too. The payment is $920 a month. Insurance is another $240. Gas, tires, registration, detailing, and the little add-ons at the dealership push the true monthly cost closer to $1,350. That is not a vehicle anymore. That is a second rent payment with leather seats. According to Experian's State of the Automotive Finance Market, for the first quarter of 2026, the average new vehicle loan term was roughly 69 months, and nearly 1/3 of auto loan terms were longer than 6 years. That matters because long loans make expensive cars feel normal. The dealer does not need you to afford the car. The dealer only needs you to afford the monthly story. Wealthy people learned this earlier than most. They stopped asking, "Can I make the payment?" and started asking, "What does this payment prevent me from owning?" Here is the hidden math. If Daniel keeps that $1,350 transportation habit for 5 years, he spends about $81,000 before we even talk about depreciation. If he chose a reliable used car and kept total transportation closer to $650 a month, the difference is $700 a month. Invested over those same 5 years, even at a modest assumed 7% annual return, that gap could grow to roughly $51,000. And the bigger point is not the exact return. The bigger point is that one decision either creates optionality or destroys it. A car can be useful, a car can be safe, a car can even be fun, but when a car is purchased to prove status to strangers, it becomes a wealth transfer from your future self to your current insecurity. The wealthy rule is simple: buy transportation, not applause. If the vehicle helps you earn more, protects your family, or fits comfortably inside your cash flow after saving and investing, fine. But if the car requires you to pause investing, carry credit card debt, or stretch the loan so far that your future has to co-sign the purchase, it is not a reward, it is a costume. And costumes get expensive when you wear them every day. There is another reason this matters. Cars do not only cost money, they create a standard. Once you get used to the heated seats, the badge, and the way people look at you when you pull up, going backwards starts to feel like failure. That is how lifestyle inflation protects itself. The wealthy break that loop by deciding in advance what enough looks like. The exact rule can vary. The point is that the rule exists before desire shows up, because desire is a terrible accountant. Chapter 2. Wealthy people stopped buying houses as trophies. This one makes people defensive, because in America, the house is not just shelter, it is identity. It is proof that adulthood happened. It is the photo you send to your parents. It is the neighborhood, the school district, the kitchen island, the feeling that life is finally on track. But wealthy people separate shelter from theater. They do not automatically assume the biggest house the bank will approve is the right house to buy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that housing was the largest category of household spending in 2024, about one-third of total average annual expenditures. Housing and transportation together were about half of household spending. That is not a minor budget line. That is the foundation of the whole financial house. So if you overbuy the house, almost every other money decision becomes harder. Imagine Priya and Marcus, a couple in the Seattle suburbs with one child and a second on the way. Combined, they make $210,000 before taxes. They are careful people. They do not gamble. They do not buy designer clothes. They pack lunch most days. But they buy a house at the top of their approval range because the mortgage broker says the numbers work. The mortgage gets paid, but daycare rises. Property taxes adjust. The roof needs work. Their utility bills are higher than expected. One car needs replacing. Suddenly, two responsible adults are living inside a financial room with no oxygen. This is how a trophy house turns into a beautiful trap. The wealthy stopped buying the maximum house because they understand that a home has two prices. There is the price on the contract, and there is the price of reduced flexibility. If the house forces you to say yes to jobs you hate, no to opportunities you need, and maybe later to your retirement contributions, it is not just expensive. It is steering your life. This does not mean renting is always smarter or buying is always a mistake. It means the wealthy buy for usefulness first. They ask, can this house survive a job loss, a child, an illness, a rate reset, a property tax increase, or a boring year where nothing goes perfectly? That question is not fear. That question is maturity. A house should make your life more stable, not more performative. If the nicest room in your home is the one where you sit awake at 2 a.m. doing math in your head, the house is not serving you. You are serving it. The wealthy also know that forever home can be an expensive phrase when used too early. There is nothing wrong with wanting a home you love, but many families buy the house for a future version of themselves that has not arrived yet. They buy for imagined holidays, an empty guest room, and extra square footage that quietly raises every bill. More house means more furniture, more maintenance, more cleaning, more insurance, more taxes, and more pressure to keep earning at a certain level. That is why the wealth-building question is not, what is the most home I can get? It is, what is the smallest home that supports the life I actually live well? Small enough to breathe, big enough to function. That middle is where a lot of freedom hides. Chapter 3. Wealthy people stopped buying convenience as a lifestyle. Convenience is not evil. Convenience is wonderful when it buys back time for something that matters. But there is a difference between occasional convenience and a life designed around frictionless spending. Food delivery, grocery delivery, rideshare, same-day shipping, premium everything because the basic version asks you to tolerate one tiny inconvenience. The modern economy has become brilliant at selling tiny escapes from tiny discomforts. And those tiny escapes add up. BLS. Consumer expenditure data for 2024 showed average food spending above $10,000 a year per consumer unit, with nearly $3,945 spent on food away from home. That category includes restaurant, takeout, and delivery meals. The data does not say everyone is wasting money. Families are different. Work schedules are different. Cities are different. But it does show that food outside the home is not a little treat hiding in the budget. It is a major category. Now, add delivery markups. A $14 meal can quietly become $27 after menu inflation, delivery fees, service fees, taxes, and tip. The app does not feel like a purchase. It feels like a rescue. That is why it works. The wealthy do not avoid convenience because they enjoy suffering. They avoid becoming dependent on convenience because dependence destroys negotiating power. If every hard day ends with a paid escape, the problem is no longer the meal. The problem is the life architecture that keeps creating the emergency. This is where money advice gets cruel. It says, just cook at home, as if everyone has the same commute, energy, family obligations, and kitchen. That is not the point here. The better question is, which conveniences are solving a real constraint, and which ones are covering a broken system? If grocery delivery saves you 2 hours and prevents 5 impulse takeout orders, it might be smart. If meal prep on Sunday saves you $300 a month and lowers stress, it might be smart. If delivery is your default, because your calendar is so overpacked that you cannot feed yourself without an app, the app is not the villain. It is the symptom. Wealthy people stopped buying convenience blindly. They buy convenience selectively. They pay for things that create capacity. They cut things that only numb exhaustion. Here is a simple audit. For 1 month, write down every purchase you made because you were tired, rushed, or emotionally overloaded. Do not judge it, just count it. That list is a map. Then look for the pattern underneath the pattern. If delivery spikes every Tuesday, maybe Tuesday is not a food problem. Maybe meetings run late and groceries are gone. If same-day shipping keeps happening, maybe your home inventory is disorganized, not your income too low. This is how wealthy people think differently. They do not only cut the expense, they redesign the trigger. Cutting an expense without fixing the trigger makes you feel productive for a minute, and then the same problem returns wearing a different receipt. So the goal is not to become a person who never orders delivery. The goal is to stop making exhaustion your most expensive decision maker. Chapter 4. Wealthy people stopped buying brand names as identity. There is a quiet moment in many wealthy lives when logos stop being impressive. At first, a logo can feel like a rival. The bag, the watch, the jacket, the shoes. It is not just fabric or metal. It says, "I am not who I used to be." That feeling is powerful, and sometimes, honestly, it is understandable. If you grew up being ignored, dismissed, or underestimated, buying something visible can feel like revenge. But wealthy people eventually notice the trap. A status symbol only works if other people recognize it. That means your self-esteem has outsourced its pricing model to strangers. The wealthiest people I have studied are not allergic to quality. They love quality. They pay for tailoring, durability, comfort, materials, and service. What they stopped buying is the markup for being seen. There is a difference between a $280 pair of shoes that you wear for years because they fit beautifully and a $1,200 pair that mostly exists to make you feel ranked above someone else. One is utility, the other is a scoreboard. And scoreboards are addictive because they move. Once the people around you normalize the $1,200 shoes, you need the $3,000 bag. Once the bag becomes normal, you need the watch. Once the watch becomes normal, you need the vacation photo. Status is a ladder where every rung dissolves under your foot. This is why wealthy people often become less visually loud over time. Not always, but often. They stop needing every purchase to testify on their behalf. Here is the decision rule. If you remove the logo, the packaging, and the social media photo, would you still want it at the same price? If yes, maybe it is worth it. If no, you are not buying the object. You are renting a feeling. And there is one more test, the replacement test. If this item got damaged, would you replace it immediately at the same price? Or would you secretly feel relieved that you had permission to choose something cheaper? That answer tells the truth. We often keep buying the premium version because we are trying to remain consistent with an older identity. Maybe you used to be the person who needed the label. Maybe that purchase once gave you confidence. But wealth requires updating your identity when the old one becomes expensive. The rich do not become rich by never caring what people think. They become rich by caring selectively. Most strangers have not earned that vote. Chapter 5. Wealthy people stopped buying subscriptions they forgot to cancel. Subscriptions are small, by design. $9.99 sounds harmless. $14.99 sounds harmless. $29.99 sounds like one lunch. Then the month closes, and your bank statement looks like it has a slow leak. Streaming, cloud storage, apps, fitness platforms, delivery memberships, newsletters, premium versions of tools you use twice, a meditation app you downloaded during a stressful week in 2023 and have not opened since. The subscription economy changed spending psychology. In the old model, you bought something once and felt the full price. In the new model, companies rent you access and hope the amount is too small to trigger a decision. Wealthy people are not immune to this. They are just more likely to build systems that catch it. They understand that every recurring charge is a tiny employee working against their cash flow. 1 employee is fine. 10 employees are a department. 30 employees are a payroll problem. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other regulators have paid more attention in recent years to recurring charges, cancellation practices, and so-called negative option programs because friction matters. Companies know that the harder something is to cancel, the more likely you are to keep paying. So, wealthy people make the opposite system. They keep a subscription inventory. They rotate entertainment services instead of holding all of them at once. They pay annually only for tools they truly use. They set renewal reminders. They treat cancellation as maintenance, not deprivation. Here is a clean rule. Every subscription must have a job. It must save time, generate money, improve health, support relationships, or deliver joy you actually use. I might need it someday is not a job. It is only $10 is not a job. This is also the first place I want you to comment. What is one subscription you canceled? Or one you know you should cancel this week? Drop it below. Not as a confession, but as a small public audit. The fastest way to break a quiet money leak is to name it. And if this kind of practical build wealth conversation is useful, subscribe. We are not chasing hacks here. We are building wealth by removing the systems that quietly remove us from our own money. Chapter 6. Wealthy people stopped buying upgrades before mastery. This is the purchase that hides inside ambition. The better camera before you have a filming habit. The premium course before you finish the free material. The professional kitchen gear before you cook consistently. The business software stack before you have customers. The $3,000 treadmill before you have a walking routine. It feels productive. That is what makes it dangerous. An upgrade can make you feel like you are becoming the person you want to be. But wealthy people learn to separate preparation from performance. They do not buy the identity before they build the behavior. Consider Elena, a corporate attorney in Chicago who wants to start a consulting business. She buys a premium website theme, branding package, scheduling tool, email platform, course, microphone, and desk setup. She spends $6,800 before making her first offer to a real client. 6 months later, the website is beautiful. The business is imaginary. This is not because Elena is foolish. It is because buying tools is emotionally easier than facing the market. The market can reject you. A checkout page cannot. Wealthy people stopped buying upgrades as avoidance. They use a mastery gate. Before upgrading, they ask, have I used the basic version enough to know exactly what is limiting me? If the answer is no, the upgrade is probably not a tool. It is a delay. The first version of almost anything should be embarrassingly simple. Use the phone camera. Use the free spreadsheet. Use the basic gym. Use the boring notebook. Use the entry-level software. Then let friction prove itself. When the cheap tool is truly costing you time, quality, safety, or revenue, upgrade without guilt. This principle is not about being cheap. Cheap people avoid spending, even when spending would help. Wealthy people spend aggressively when the purchase has a proven job. That is the difference. They stopped buying potential and started buying bottleneck removal. A lot of products are sold to the person you hope to become. The landing page sells the feeling of being organized. The course sells the feeling that your future is finally under control. The gear sells permission to begin, but permission is free. If you want to write badly first. If you want to invest, automate a small amount first. If you want to get fit, repeat the boring movement first. If you want to build a business, talk to 10 possible customers first. Then buy the upgrade after reality has given you evidence. Wealthy people love evidence. Evidence keeps ambition from becoming shopping. Chapter 7. Wealthy people stopped buying vacations they could not remember without the photos. Travel can be one of the best uses of money. It can widen your life and give you stories that last longer than most objects. But travel has also become a performance economy. The resort, the room upgrade, the airport lounge, the matching outfits, the rented car for the photo, the restaurant that looks better on camera than it tastes in real life. You can spend thousands of dollars creating evidence that you had a good time while barely having a good time. Wealthy people did not stop traveling. Many travel more. They stopped buying travel for social proof. This is a subtle shift. They ask, what is the experience I actually want? Before they ask, what will this look like? Maybe the answer is 5 quiet days near water. Maybe it is visiting family without turning the trip into a production. Maybe it is a national park, a rented cabin, a city apartment, a road trip, or one excellent meal. The cost is not the problem. The mismatch is the problem. A $7,000 trip that reconnects a family after a brutal year might be a beautiful use of money. A $7,000 trip booked because everyone else seemed to be in Europe this summer is just peer pressure with a flight number. The wealthy understand another thing. A vacation purchased with debt often steals rest from the future. If the trip follows you home as a credit card balance at a high interest rate, the vacation did not end at checkout. It became a monthly invoice. The Federal Reserve's G19 consumer credit data has shown credit card interest rates on accounts assessed interest sitting above 20% in recent years. At that price, borrowing for status travel is not self-care. It is paying a penalty to impress people who are not paying attention. So before booking, use the memory test. If no one saw the photos, would this still be the trip you choose? If the answer is yes, plan it well and enjoy it fully. If the answer is no, you may be buying an audience, not a vacation. There is also a timing issue. Some people take expensive trips because they are trying to recover from a life they refuse to redesign. They spend 50 weeks exhausted, then ask 1 week at a resort to repair everything. Wealthy people often use travel differently. They build smaller forms of rest into normal life, then use travel for experiences that are actually distinct. A place, a relationship, a memory, a skill, a reset. The vacation is not forced to become emergency medicine for a calendar that keeps injuring them. That does not mean everyone can redesign work overnight. But if every vacation has to be bigger because regular life feels unbearable, the financial question and the life question are connected. Buying a better escape is not the same as building a life you do not need to escape from every month. Chapter 8. Wealthy people stopped buying financial complexity. This one sounds strange because we associate wealth with complexity. Private funds, tax strategies, real estate syndications, options, crypto wallets, whole life illustrations, business entities, fancy dashboards, acronyms that make people feel underdressed. But a lot of wealthy people get rich with a surprisingly boring core. They spend less than they earn. They keep cash reserves. They buy diversified assets. They avoid high-interest debt. They protect their downside. They let time do heavy work. Then, only when the basics are strong, they add complexity if it solves a real problem. Most people do it backward. They want advanced strategies before basic solvency. They want passive income before an emergency fund. They want a tax shelter before taxable income. They want to beat the market before they have automated monthly investing. Financial complexity is seductive because it makes you feel sophisticated. But sophistication is not the same as progress. If your financial life cannot be explained on one page, it may be complex because you are wealthy, or it may be complex because you are avoiding the simple truth. The Fed's 2025 SHED report, based on the 2024 survey, found that 63% of adults said they could cover a $400 emergency expense with cash or its equivalent. Read the inverse carefully. A large share of adults could not do that without borrowing, selling something, or using another method. That is not a moral failure. It is a signal. Before complicated wealth strategies, most households need liquidity. Wealthy people stopped buying complexity before resilience. They know a $2,000 emergency fund is more useful than a complicated investment idea if the next car repair would otherwise go on a credit card. They know matching contributions in a 401k can be more valuable than chasing a hot stock. They know boring index funds can beat brilliant procrastination. There is a time for tax planning. There is a time for business structure. There is a time for estate planning, real estate, and more advanced moves. But complexity should arrive as a response to real assets, real income, real risk, or real scale, not as decoration. Here's the rule. If you cannot fund the boring basics automatically, do not buy the advanced thing manually. Build wealth in this order: liquidity, debt control, protected income, diversified investing, then optimization. Not because that order is glamorous, because it keeps you alive long enough for compounding to matter. There is a reason simple wins. Simple is easier to repeat when life gets messy. Simple is easier to explain to a spouse, a partner, or your future self. Simple is easier to maintain during a job change, a new baby, or a medical bill. Complexity has a maintenance cost. Every extra account, strategy, asset, password, renewal, tax form, and moving part asks for attention. If it mostly produces the feeling of being advanced, it may be stealing the one resource money was supposed to protect: your attention. Wealthy people are not impressed by complicated if complicated does not work. They would rather have a boring plan funded every month than a brilliant plan they never actually execute. Chapter 9. Wealthy people stopped buying other people's timelines. This might be the most expensive purchase because it often does not show up as a line item. You buy the wedding because everyone in your circle had that kind of wedding. You buy the house because by 35 you feel behind. You buy the car because the promotion seems to require it. You buy the private school, the renovation, the holiday gifts, the birthday weekend, the wardrobe, the neighborhood. None of these decisions are automatically wrong, but together, they can become a life purchased from a script you did not write. Wealthy people are often very good at one socially uncomfortable skill: disappointing expectations. They can say, "That is not our priority this year." They can say, "We are keeping it simple." They can say, "We are not spending on that right now." They can attend the wedding without matching everyone else's hotel choice. They can celebrate a child without turning the birthday into a brand launch. They can renovate slowly, live in a smaller house longer, and let a friend group underestimate them. That last part is harder than it sounds, because many people do not overspend because they lack financial knowledge. They overspend because belonging has a price tag. If your social world silently requires you to spend beyond your values, the budget problem is also a boundary problem. The wealthy stopped buying every invitation at full price. They choose the costs that match their real priorities and decline the costs that only maintain an image. Sometimes that means an honest conversation. Sometimes it means choosing different rituals. Sometimes it means accepting that people who benefit from your overspending may not cheer when you stop. That is okay. Financial independence is not just having enough money to leave a job. It is having enough internal permission to leave a performance. Ask yourself, which purchase in my life exists mainly because I am afraid of what people will assume if I do not buy it? That question can sting. It can also free up thousands of dollars. And sometimes the purchase is not even for someone else. Sometimes it is for an imagined courtroom in your own head. You are defending yourself against the person who doubted you 10 years ago. You are proving something to relatives who are not in the room. That is human, but it is also expensive. At some point, wealthy people stop paying witnesses who never show up. They let the old audience leave. Then money gets quieter. Decisions get cleaner. The question becomes less, "What does this say about me?" and more, "What does this do for the life I am building?" That is when spending starts to become honest. Chapter 10. Wealthy people stopped buying time with money they had not first assigned. This is the one that ties everything together. Most people spend from the top down. Money lands in checking. Life attacks it. Bills, food, gas, subscriptions, emergencies, fun, guilt, convenience, repairs, gifts, upgrades. Whatever survives at the end of the month is supposed to become savings, but money rarely survives an unassigned month. Wealthy people reverse the order. They do not wait to see what is left. They decide what each dollar becomes before the month begins. Some dollars become housing, some become food, some become insurance, some become emergency reserves, some become investments, some become joy, some become giving, some become future taxes. Some become a business idea. Some become a vacation paid in advance, not paid afterward with interest. The difference is not that wealthy people never spend. The difference is that spending happens inside a system that already protected the future. This is why two households with the same income can end up in completely different places after 10 years. Household A earns $120,000 and saves whatever is left. Most months, nothing is left. They are not reckless. The money just keeps finding jobs before they assign it one. Household B earns the same $120,000 and automates $1,200 a month into retirement and brokerage accounts, plus $300 a month into a cash buffer. They still spend. They still make mistakes. They still buy dinner out, but the first dollars have already escaped. After 10 years, at an illustrative 7% annual return, that $1,200 monthly investment could grow to roughly $207,000. The $300 monthly cash reserve, even before interest, creates $36,000 of shock absorption over the same period if maintained and replenished. Same income, different operating system. This is the quiet secret. Wealth is not built mainly by heroic decisions. It is built by defaults. Defaults decide what happens when you are tired. Defaults decide what happens when work gets stressful. Defaults decide what happens when friends invite you somewhere expensive. Your phone shows you something shiny, or your mood wants a purchase to change the weather inside your head. If your default is spending, Saving requires constant willpower. If your default is saving, spending requires a conscious choice. That is why wealthy people stopped buying time with unassigned money. They knew unassigned money would always become someone else's revenue. So what should you do this week? First, pick one category from this video, not all 10. 1. The car, the house, convenience, logos, subscriptions, premature upgrades, performance travel, financial complexity, other people's timelines, or unassigned money. Second, calculate the real monthly cost, not the emotional cost, not the advertised cost, the real cost. Third, decide what job that money should have instead. Should it become a 3-month emergency fund, a 401k match, credit card payoff, a brokerage transfer, a debt-free vacation fund, a business experiment, a calmer month? Money without a job becomes a leak. Money with a job becomes power. And this is where the original promise closes. Wealthy people did not stop buying nice things. They stopped buying things in the wrong order. They stopped buying applause before assets. They stopped buying speed before stability. They stopped buying complexity before resilience. They stopped buying belonging at the price of their own future. The goal is not to become joyless. The goal is to become hard to manipulate, because the market is always offering you a feeling, status, relief, identity, urgency, sophistication, belonging. Some of those feelings are worth paying for. Many are not. The wealthy learn to pause long enough to ask, is this purchase making me freer or just making me look freer? That one question can change a life. So comment with the one thing you are no longer willing to buy on autopilot. Be specific. Delivery on tired Thursdays, the upgraded car, forgotten subscriptions, trips for photos, other people's timelines. Pick the leak, name the job, redirect the money. Looking rich is expensive, being rich is quieter. And quiet money, protected early and repeated often, is what eventually buys the loudest thing of all, freedom.